reimagining of public safety, specifically for Black communities across the U.S. If elected, will you remain accountable to these Black communities and organizers of Georgia by supporting the BREATHE Act, which calls for a demilitarization of police and divestment from prisons in order to build a healthy, sustainable, and equitable for Black and brown people?
So thank you so much for the question. When Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, we had a meeting at my church. And this is the legacy of Ebenezer. It's a place with the kind of moral authority to bring people together. And I was proud that night because the church, in the midst of that tragic moment, was filled to capacity, close to 2,000 people. And the Black Lives Matter activists were there, but they weren't simply there, they were on the program. And they were raising their issues so that they could be heard. But the chief of police was also there, the mayor was there, the attorney general was there, parents were there. And I've spent my career bringing people together, both activists and policymakers, to try to solve these problems. So absolutely, you have a commitment that we must demilitarize the police. We should not have militarized vehicles rolling down American streets. And this is one of the unfortunate things that we've seen over the last decade and more. And we need to deal with the privatization of prisons. And so it is something that I will be focused on. A lot of this is the war on drugs, which has too often been a war on Black and brown communities. And now that we're seeing in more recent years the emergence of the opioid epidemic, largely in rural communities, white communities, there's the recognition that often what we're dealing with is a public health emergency. And so the contrast between the treatment is something you can't miss. But I think there's an opportunity there to build a multiracial coalition which recognizes that our children need support and that we need to invest in the machinery of life rather than invest in a mindless and unreflective way.
Hey, my name is Raphael. I'm a Latinx community organizer. I wanted to ask the Secretary what got him involved and inspired him to start organizing this community.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, and thank you for you and all y'all are doing. I was inspired because I had a mom who was an organizer herself. She was an activist, and what I got from my mother was this sense that all of us should participate in the democratic process. All of us should do something to try and make the lives of other people better. That's one of the reasons that I admire Reverend Warnock, because he has dedicated his life to lifting up. Over these last 4 years, like a lot of y'all, I have been inspired, I was inspired to try and do more, because what I've seen out there is that our country is going backward, and that we need to make sure that everybody in this country is treated equally. We need to ensure that instead of cruelty, that we can have laws on immigration and other things that exercise common sense and some compassion toward people. And most of all, I have felt very, very blessed, like I'm sure you have, everyone, with the opportunity that I've had in this country. And I wanted to make sure that other people could have opportunities in life. That's why I got into public service in the first place. And when I think about the opportunity that we have as a country in the years to come, I think about how many more kids can cross the graduation stage and go to college. You know, how many more folks who are sleeping on the street right now can actually have a safe, decent, affordable place to live in our country. How many of our young kids right now who don't see a future for themselves can have a great future. That's what we're working toward. And that's why it's so important that Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff win this election. Unless they win this election, all of the dreams that we have for Georgia and for our country are not going to come to pass in the next few years.
Hi, my name is Madison Hack, and I'm a student organizer at Kennesaw State University, as well as our NAACP president. Thank you for your time today in prioritizing student voices and questions. My question for you is, essentially right now we're seeing attempts to weaken democracy and discount the voices of American people. What would be your advice to my generation to ensure that democracy stands? And that's for both of you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your activism and engagement right now. My encouragement is just to stay the course. And I know it can be discouraging, particularly based on what we've seen over the last 4 years. But when you look at the arc of our country's progress, often our democracy, and like you, I'm so committed to the democratic idea, you know, but our democracy expands, and then sometimes it contracts. And we've gone through the last 4 years through one big contraction. But the folks who believe in this grand and noble idea, "E pluribus unum," out of many one, a country of people drawn together not on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, or religion, but an idea. Those folks have had to stand up time and time again, and it gets richer the more diversity there is in that conversation. And so, you know, I don't think freedom is a destination as much as it is a journey. And I think of America as a freedom train. And white sisters and brothers have gotten on that train, spoken eloquently about it. Thomas Jefferson, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Right? But we know that people who are the descendants of slaves have had to stand up and push. Well, when you said all, and then women have had to stand up and say, "Did you really just mean men?" And so other folk have had to get on that train and strengthen and lengthen the cords of democracy. And the members of the LGBTQ plus community have had to stand up and say, "We too have a stake in this democracy." And so it's just so important that you keep engaged and that you inspire people hear your voice, both through your vote and through your activism.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll
go after you.
Okay.
This is just the last student question. I'll open it up to the press. Just so
Oh, okay.
Hello, my name is Imani Ben. I'm currently a sophomore political science major at Spelman College. In this past election season, I was a student fellow with the DNC and also Spelman College. So my question for both Secretary Castro and Reverend Warnock, what advice do you have for young organizers and working to mobilize?
We need you. Y'all are the key to make sure that Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff win on January 5th. I mean, we see over and over and over again that where we win is because we extend the electorate, because we get people excited. And you know the knock on young people, right? They don't come out to vote, they don't care, you know, they'd rather be doing other things. But a lot of young people who are paying attention, a lot of folks who are excited, and y'all are the key to bring them out. You're the ambassadors to make sure that they understand what the stakes are and how much better their future, the future of this country as a whole can be. If they'll just go out and cast a ballot in this election. And, you know, it's true that most of the time, although we have seen elections where one vote does make the difference, right? Most of the time it doesn't come down to one vote. But if everybody out there who thinks that their vote, my one vote isn't going to make the difference, if everybody who thought that actually went and voted together, they would make the biggest difference, and they would sweep in Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff, and they would be the next 2 United States Senators from here in Georgia. So we need you. Please go get them out.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a really important question. Is it okay if I ask it?
No, we don't
Sure,
have to.
sure. We'll quickly take a question. Yeah.
Yes, Reverend Warnock, it's such a powerful thing to see you in this position right now, especially from someone I attended School of Theology as a seminary student, I want to talk to you and ask you. I was gonna pose it as a question, but I really want to ask: can we count on you and your role as politicians to not only have the speech of the people, but also the politic of the people? Because oftentimes we see people get in these positions that look like us, and oftentimes they're swayed by the counter of whiteness and Eurocentricism, and we are trying to say what we mean, but oftentimes the people who get in those seats, they decide to take the narrative of those who gave them the seat, rather than us defining the narrative for ourselves as black and brown organizers on the ground. So as we're out here canvassing for you, can we count on you to be for the people all the time?
Thank you so much. And the answer is yes. You can count on me always to center, and that's what I was trying to say the other night. You can always count on